And we've devoted significant resources in support of our strategy with 4 goals in mind. Number 1, to control the outbreak. Number 2, to address the ripple effects of local economies and communities to prevent a truly massive humanitarian disaster. Number 3, to coordinate a broader global response. And number 4, to urgently build up a public health system in these countries for the future. Not just in West Africa, but in countries that don't have a lot of resources generally. Now, this is a daunting task, but here's what gives us hope. The world knows how to fight this disease. It's not a mystery. We know the science. We know how to prevent it from spreading. We know how to care for those who contract it. We know that if we take the proper steps, we can save lives.
The common theme for today's videos will be globalism. There's 2 big threats right now of these crises that we're told about that we're supposed to be concerned about. Most of you already know what they are. Oh, look at that, ongoing, right? Hot news, Ebola virus outbreak, and the ISIS terror. So, you better be scared. The Ebola virus, the Hegelian dialect for the New World Order. Problem, reaction, solution. Most of you have already heard this many times before. This video that you just watched was titled A Global Threat. Obama reveals plan for Ebola outbreak. And you have world leaders vow to use whatever means necessary to defeat the ISIS threat. The most recent crisis, and still ongoing crisis or kind of economic war that's taking place between the more of a globalist faction that comes out of the West and in the East, even in China, and more of the, I don't even want to say nationalist, but something in between nationalism and globalism, say Russia and other countries like Syria. This is titled, What are the Global Implications of the Ukraine Crisis? So it's getting you to care about something that you wouldn't normally, at least your ancestors for the most part, didn't give a shit about because they had too many problems in their own life. But you're supposed to care about this stuff. It impacts you as a global citizen in the global community. Earlier this year, and part of late last year, I covered about the whole Africa campaign, and some people refer to it as recolonization, but basically an American presence setting up bases, sending military commands there from NATO and the U.S., basically setting up operations there. You had the Islamic threat. They tried with Coney, people didn't buy that. The terrorists in Algeria and stuff, and Mali was the big thing, right? France was spearheading that, and now comes the Ebola virus. Obama saying that he's going to make sure that all these poor countries have these medical institutions. It's not even so much eugenics. They just want to make money off these people because then you have to pay for that. You have to work off that interest. But it makes a lot of money, these vaccines and this care, and there's hundreds, if not thousands, of people who care more about somebody else's people, far off land than their own people. Very altruistic. It's like a suicidal altruism is what it is. Along with the drone bases and weapons and guns and blowing shit up, the U.S. is setting up military command centers to fight the out-of-control Ebola epidemic in West Africa. The problem is, if the outbreak is not stopped now, according to Obama, we could be looking at hundreds of thousands of people infected. The reaction faced with this outbreak, the world is looking to the United States, and it is a responsibility we are prepared to embrace. We are prepared to take leadership on this. Here's the real big kicker, because we know he doesn't give a damn about people dying, just like many of the leadership that we've had here in the U.S. of A. This epidemic is not just a threat to regional security. It is a potential threat to global security. if these countries break down, if their economies break down, and people panic. And it goes on, talking about how the Major General of U.S. Army Africa and whatever AFRICOM, other units, have already landed in Liberia to lead the effort and establish a military command center. So there's, Al Qaeda coming in, they got a humanitarian disaster and refugees and these poor people, and let's go in there and save them with bombs and guns. This is more of a different approach, basically. On a side note, something I've covered here and there in the last couple of years, which is Russian scientist dies in Ebola accident at former weapons lab. Is this coming from the Russians? I mean, there's obviously some kind of big war going on in the background over control of resources over the economies. And this was in a biological weapons laboratory in Siberia. Accidentally died after sticking herself with a needle laced with Ebola, the deadly virus for which there was no vaccine or treatment until probably now. This was back in September from the 17th, something I just never got to. Venezuela on alert over mysterious deadly disease. Then moving on to Colombia. Mystery illness plagues girls in Colombia. So whether it's true or not, whether something's actually taking place, the fearmongers are definitely going to be there to scare the ever-living daylights out of you and offer some kind of solution. And they got this goblin coming out from the CDC. U.S. Ebola case is scary, unprecedented, says CDC. I've even seen something like this, which is what you'll find in basically online. Ebola cholera, the epidemiology of anti-blackness and the white savior industrial complex. So this is just, when I saw this article, it really bothered me. I left a comment on my Facebook page for Global Government News. And you can go in there and read it. But it's like when you see shit like this, at least as a white person, I can't speak for other people, but it pissed me off because it's like I have no say in this. And it's obviously about money. It has nothing to do with whites killing blacks, these black people, and going in and trying to help them. This is basically, it's not a race issue here. This is an economic issue. And it's about getting poor saps to think globally. I saw this article from the September 26th. Modern air power versus tribal warriors. This article was kind of just thrown out there, part of the mobilizing the American people, engineering their consent for war, another Iraq. And basically it goes down and says that it pits a global superpower at the head of an international coalition against a brutally ambitious terrorist group because they didn't want to have anything to do with it. Basically, Obama's at the UN trying to rally the international community against an ideologically driven movement of extremists. Remember that. Syrian airstrikes raise lone wolf terror threat in U.S. and feds are warning the American people about it. I saw this on the TV news, basically an advertisement for friggin' 60 Minutes or something, saying, could it be that ISIS is going to, it was basically showing white people in America that were going to, start carrying out terrorist attacks along with Muslims. So just some real ridiculous fear-mongering crap. American airstrikes in Syria halted the threat of ISIS attacks. But it says here it raised the specter of angry lone wolf sympathizers carrying out an attack on their own. And then you go on and it talks about Homeland Security saying that you have Chertoff, who used fear last time to sell, body scanners in the airports. So you got to think that you have him to thank for it. Chertoff warns ISIS could hit U.S. target. It's kind of a weird worded title. I don't know what the hell. It's supposed to name a law enforcement bulletin warned of ISIS urging jihad attacks on U.S. soil. So this group, it really exists, like mentioned before, because of imperialism or globalism and everything that they've done to smaller tribal people. These threats will most likely increase should the U.S. or its allies attack the Islamic State. So they know that this they already created this enemy. Now they know that it's going to only make it worse, which then all of these people will carry out attacks. And you're going to have a lot of these people that are coming in with the refugees. And like in Liberia, where they're bringing in Ebola, these are all part of your immigration policies that you should love. They're bringing you this wonderful utopia of multiculturalism and economic security. So they're getting people ready for something, whether it's going to be a legitimate attack or most likely what people refer to as a false flag. Most of the sting operations are by the feds themselves, so I think the threat is very limited. But they say, despite it being extremely rare, when the next terrorist attack comes, will we be able to handle after the Patriot Act and the rights lost and all the freaking money that was spent? I'd hope so. They recommend we ought to think about what would happen afterwards so we don't completely lose our minds. Fed's denial of Islamic State, Mexico threat so dishonest. Again, I don't really like the way they word these headlines, but government believes a terrorist attack at the U.S.-Mexico border is imminent and has put out a bulletin on the matter. So, again, be scared, be afraid. Parents of American Peter Kassig, held by Islamic State, released a statement and asked for prayers for their son and all the hostages. He's shown an orange jumpsuit held by a masked man who says, Obama, you have started your aerial bombardment in Syria, which keeps on striking our people, so it is only right that we continue to strike the necks of your people. He joined the Army in 2006. He got out for what they said due to a medical condition. He studied, became a medical technician in 2012 on a humanitarian group, NGO. Why is all this important? Well, because it's in Turkey. They said they're bringing food and medical supplies for refugees fleeing basically the war against Syria. And we know that a lot of these terrorists were being aided and funneled through Turkey, wreaking havoc there in Syria, destabilizing the area. And there's a lot of intelligence agencies and special forces that are involved from the UK, Britain, and the US. So this guy could have actually been a friggin' spook or something over there. Even if he's not, he's over there and, again, it's suicidal altruism, so care about other people, strangers. Oklahoma beheading suspect, oh, you haven't heard this, this is crazy. Oklahoma beheading took place, so it's coming home to you, close to you. He reportedly tried to convert others to Islam before attack. ABC says U.S. may have allowed dozens of terrorists to emigrate as refugees. You think? That's what I've been talking about. If they do come back and they see you start blowing places up and killing Americans, you brought it onto yourself. If you want to get rally behind this propaganda and you want to support this stuff that created this threat from the beginning, then I hate to say it, you kind of get what you deserve, but if you want to say that you're free and you have a say, well then I guess you do kind of deserve it. Mostly because you're naive and you're being a useful idiot. And there will be a lot of people that will really suffer because of it. Not because of you going in there, quote, helping them. Israel lobby supports al-Nusra and insurgents in Aleppo. So Israel gives cover and opened a corridor for al-Nusra along the Golan Heights. The senior Defense Intelligence Agency analyst says the risk of empowering an al-Qaeda affiliate is a small price to pay for their contributions on the battlefield. A national newspaper published in the UAE confirmed an earlier report basically about southern Damascus and the attack basically by al-Nusra and the CIA. Questions arise after experts say Foley ISIS beheading video likely staged. So ISIS beheadings of journalists. The CIA admitted to staging fake jihadist videos in 2010. Then we have this, radicalized right-wing activists pledging allegiance to dangerous agenda. America, your religious extremists are already inside the homeland, so what are we going to do about it? How about you stop being stupid and you close your damn borders? That's a good start. Like in Germany, they're actually paying for mosques to be built. Stop funding terrorism, too. I mean, that would be a good start, too. The Call of Duty director is saying the U.S. should station soldiers in schools. A threat now, the invasion comes from within, he said. Got our article to finish up with, and we'll come back with in the next video. They don't call Moscow when there's trouble in the world. Who do they call? They call us. That's Probably because you created the problem to begin with. Thank you.